What's good, everyone? This episode of Showa Showcase will be, well, a bit truncated due to the figure in question. You see, this figure is not really an actual figure. Go figure. More like a prop or an accessory for a related group of figures. Not just any group of figures, mind you, but an evolving group, each with a specific stage of growth. So while necessary, it is difficult to analyze in the same way I normally review finds. But let's give it a go for Bandai's 2024 Hedorah Flying Stage.
Like Godzilla, right?
He beats them all.
In my extensive Hedorah crawling, standing, landing stage review, I spoke ad nauseum about some of the evolution regarding the Smog Monster. In that, there were 4 distinct stages as represented on painted panels in the movie. A sludgy tadpole-like water stage, the amphibious 4 to 2-legged standing stage, and the next 2, one of which is his perfect form, a large bipedal walking tower of pollutant sludge, and this the UFO-like flying stage. I say UFO because it emits a sound in flight that recalls 50s-style sci-fi flying saucers. But in actuality, this form borrows from several influences, which I will get to as soon as I get to the aesthetics. In the film, Godzilla vs. Hedorah, the villainous creature transforms himself into this flying abomination during the middle of the film, after gorging on a street full of cars in its landing form. It then proceeds to fly around the city, emitting a toxic mist that is corrosive to both mineral and organic matter, causing a group of women to choke as it flies overhead, another group of people to disintegrate, and a building frame to collapse as it corrodes. Even when Godzilla confronts Hedorah in this form, he leaves the king of the monsters gasping for air. During the final battle between the 2 Kaiju, Hedorah transforms into this form to pick up Godzilla and dump him into a ravine so he could, do his thing on him in his perfect form. The flying mode is something I remember from when I was very young when I first saw this movie. It's arguably one of the more iconic forms, equally referenced as much as his perfect form in media. He almost featured this form in the NES video game Godzilla Monster of Monsters, but it was relegated to an end credits glimpse. Despite that, never in my beliefs would I see this as a Bandai release, simply because I didn't think the company would ever bother since it's barely an action figure. Bandai countered my beliefs with a "hold my beer." With this vinyl piece, what you see is what you get. Hedorah's flying form is replicated here, utilizing the uniform color scheme that started with its 2022 perfect form and continued on to its 2 landing forms. The green-gray base vinyl color, which has highlights of metallic red, silver, and yellow spray, mostly on its frontal area and back surface. The eyes are still done in that uniform bright red with a piercing yellow iris, finishing with a black pupil on both. It's undeniably Hedorah, even if you've only seen him in this perfect form. Like the 2 landing forms, the undercarriage has no paint apps, just a dull olive color. Sculpt is excellent. You can tell that the modern Bandai modelers really consider the source material photos for all the deeds. It's a long way from a simple interpretation that were common from the figures in the 90s. These are more in line with the many high-end garage kit models. The beaded eyelids and the slip of the face on the sides, the way the tail curls at the very tip, all things that would often be glazed over as long as the basic shape was there. Again, carrying over from the previous 2 landing stage figures, we get that hint of a vertebrae backbone towards its top rear. This is a detail that I've never caught in the movie, or in any of his forms. Again, calling back the added value of modern movie monster series. The underside is most fascinating. Here you can see that Hedorah has a number of grasping phalanges tucked under like a clay horseshoe crab. So interesting because I always wondered how Hedorah could pick up Godzilla in this mode. It adds a dimension to this monster, especially in a biological sense. It's been said that manta rays were also an influence on this design, and the top side plays on that just as well. This really enriches the understanding of the creator's intent when working on the film. There's a neat design theory here, and the idea that Hedorah borrows from all kinds of aquatic life in his first 3 stages is engaging, like some primordial fish creature that crawls from the muck and learns to adapt to land and air. Evolution is wonderful. Of course, I can gush about the sculpt, but I also must point out one big detractor: the seam halfway through the body, probably for reasons of not wanting a solid piece of vinyl. This figure was hollowed out to probably keep costs down or prevent some kid from chucking this as a solid weight and hurting somebody. That's my headcanon, so who knows. Hedorah Flying Stage can do this. Before I get into the various stage comparisons, I wanted to show him with the 68 Godzilla. There's a lot of people out there who see pictures of this piece and think that it looks too big, and Flying Stage is big. I think we just all assumed it was small because it was just a prop in the movie, but when you see shots of it carrying Godzilla and realize how much of it eclipses G, damn it, they look great. Since both landing forms were close, both in sculpt and release, I'll highlight them together with the Flying Stage, and they all look related. Of course, the Flying Stage is almost as smooth as these two, but once you set him next to his perfect form. Perfect form stands out amongst them all, with the most amount of detail. They all share the same colors as I stated before, but the applications are all different in terms of the area. With all of these forms together, I feel a sense of accomplishment, until, of course, Bandai releases a tadpole version. Not saying that's going to happen, but if they do, Hedorah will need a shelf for its own. Feeling like a deep cut, Bandai has blessed us with a very non-typical vinyl. A static kaiju with not too many ways to display it. This figure, and I use the phrase lightly, is a well-sculpted and decoed release, giving us, the connoisseur, a close look at the movie's prop designs. The big question is, does this release fly high or spew chunks? Only the fists of Jet Jaguar can really answer that question. Flying Stage Hedorah was something I wanted a vinyl rendition of, and he's here. That being said, it's a bit underwhelming once the honeymoon phase has washed over, and that is why the punch rating hits at 3. Don't get me wrong, everything you expect you get here, but once you let it sink in that you paid the same price for this as the same rate as a standard vinyl figure with articulation, Flying Stage Hedorah feels like a prop. A very cool prop, make no mistake, but I think a reduced price would have made this more palatable. Ultimately, this will boil down to the type of collector you are, a Hedorah enthusiast or a completist, or someone who's good with one representative rendition of said kaiju. And without a proper display stand, if there is even one, the Flying Stage will just be lying flat on your shelf like the sludge puddle that it is. As always, I appreciate your time, and I would be extra appreciative for a like, share, and especially a subscribe. With Godzilla -1 winning an Oscar, and the advent of Godzilla x Kong in the theaters right now, the world of Godzilla is more relevant than ever. Let's all show support for one another in this fandom, so we can all continue to have discussions. Thanks again for watching.